Welcome back. Now, Health Secretary Wes Streeting's been doubling down on his war of words with Nigel Farage with, I guess, some pretty scathing comments. Take a listen.
Nigel Farage achieved a breakthrough at the last election with 5 MPs. I think the Greens got roughly the same number, 4 or 5.
5.
No one's saying, you know, Carla Denyer, come on down. Are you the next progressive Prime Minister in our country? Ed Davey got the best result the modern Liberal Party has ever achieved. The Liberal Democrats have never got that many MPs. No one's saying, step forward Prime Minister Ed Davey.
You didn't mention him in your speech, Wes, to be fair.
For Ed Davey mania hasn't happened. I do think there has become this obsession. I do think it's kind of driven by social media, what has reach, what gets clicked, like serve the clicks, get the reach rather than provide the serious analysis. I mean, let's not get too carried away about Nigel Farage. Guy gets so much airtime. He got 5 MPs at the last election and he doesn't shine in the House of Commons.
Oh, so there we go. What do you reckon? Are Streeting and Labour rattled by reform? It comes, of course, when reform are surging in the polls, topping a national poll ahead of Labour and the Tories for the first time in recent days and massively closing the gap in another. Let me know your thoughts by heading to gbnews.com/your say. I'm joined now by Reform UK spokesperson Anne Widdecombe. Anne, good evening to you. Thank you for joining me. What do you make of the Health Secretary's comments about Nigel and you guys?
Well, I think as you've indicated yourself, he's rattled. He's very, very rattled. And it isn't only that we're performing well in the polls. It is also that Nigel Farage's approval ratings are going up, while Keir Starmer's are going down. So if you ask the general public what they want, it isn't Wes Streeting's version. And Nigel has got them rattled. We have overtaken the membership of the Tories. We have certainly overtaken the Tories now in poll after poll. We've either been very close to or in one poll on top of Labour. We're moving, and we're going to do it. And we've got 4 more years in which to do it. I think Wes Streeting will have to change his tune.
Yeah. So you think he is rattled? Got it. What do you make of the fact that a lot of these local council elections are going to be cancelled? I mean, Nigel Farage has called it an attack on democracy. Is it, in your opinion, a deliberate attempt from Labour to stop your momentum?
I don't think it's that. I think it is an attack on democracy because, I think council elections should always go ahead. So I think it probably is an attack on democracy. But on the other hand, I don't think it's specifically aimed at reform. I think Labour's pretty scared in general, and they've every reason to be. I mean, no government in my lifetime, at any rate, has collapsed in public approval in such a short space of time. You usually have a honeymoon period.
So, in your opinion, Anne, what have Labour done wrong so far? I mean, I know it's probably an easy question to answer.
Where do we start? Yeah, right, OK. They come in and the first thing they do is cancel the winter fuel allowance. So some of the poorest pensioners just above the benefits line are not actually going to get their winter fuel allowance. Then they decided to attack food production in this country through their changes to inheritance tax for farmers. Then above all, they put up prices for employers to such an extent that we've now got unemployment rising. And we will have businesses closing because you can't survive if you've got too many costs. So wherever you look, Labour have failed, and they have failed disastrously. And above all, they failed on the small boats. There's no policy there. Stop the gangs, he says. But, meanwhile, they're coming in by the hundreds every day.
But I guess, Anne, in their defence, if they were here, and I mean, Bill Rammel's here, we'll chat to him in a second, but if they were here, they'd say, for example, on the economy, they inherited a massive black hole. It was an absolute mess. You don't buy it?
A, I don't buy it. B, having talked the country down solidly for 6 months since they came in, they've suddenly realised that, according to Rachel Reeves, they need a bit of positivity. Well, what have they done towards contributing to positivity? They've actually talked the country down. That is one of the worst things any government can do. You want to boost your country.
Wes Streeting says that Nigel Farage has a miserable outlook, and that's all he does.
Well, he's linked that specifically to the health service, if you watch the entire speech. And, of course, we're the ones who want a thriving health service, who want the tax incentives for the doctors and nurses, the retention incentives, who want to take the cap off the numbers in medical training. We're the ones who want all that. We're the ones who want a thriving bubbling NHS. They're the miserable ones who won't do anything any different.
Yeah, OK. And just lastly, Anne, whilst I've got you, Wes Streeting said that Nigel Farage doesn't particularly shine in the Commons as an MP. You've been there, or were in there for many, many years. Is Nigel Farage a good MP? Does he shine in Parliament?
Yes, I think Nigel Farage is a very good MP. I think all our Reform MPs, albeit there are only 5 of them, are all good MPs, are all making their mark. Nobody dominates the House of Commons day after day, but certainly Nigel has made a huge impact, and that is why the polls are doing what they're doing. If he'd just gone away and kept quiet, polls wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. OK, Anne Widdecombe, thank you so much. I really enjoy your company. Thank you for being with me this evening. Bill Rammell, just to you very quickly. Anne Widdecombe says Labour and Wes Streeting are rattled by reform.
No, look, I'm not going to claim that Labour is doing brilliantly in the polls, but look at the Mail on Sunday this morning. Preferred Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, 10% ahead of Nigel Farage, 20% ahead of Kemi Badenoch. And I think Wes is right to throw the spotlight back on Farage. You know, he's on the record as being in favour of an insurance-based funding model for the National Health Service. He's committed to £70 billion worth of cuts in public spending. That's not where the British people are. OK, now, President Donald Trump has said he thinks Sir Keir Starmer has done, quote, a very good job so far, despite his liberal views, and that's as the Prime Minister confirms that the pair did speak over the phone today and even agreeing to meet soon. So this will come as a boost to the Prime Minister, who's looking to secure a trade deal with the US, of course. That's amid looming threats of Trump tariffs all across Europe. However, in the UK, a new poll shows Mr Starmer's approval rating has dipped to a record low of minus 35%, absolutely plunging to say the least, as only 1 in 10 people think Labour is doing a good job in government. The Prime Minister's also facing intense criticism for allegedly withholding information from the public about the Southport stabbings and the attacker. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, she weighed in to GB News on this morning. Take a look.
What went wrong, in my view, with Keir Starmer is that his initial reaction was to rush to criticise the people who were worried. And yes, of course, some people committed crimes, but he wasn't worried about prejudicing their trials. He was worried about prejudicing this trial. That's where you see the unequal treatment, and that's where we need to be careful.
So, as the British public continues to lose confidence in his government, will the Prime Minister survive a full term? That's the big question, or will he be out the door? We're joined now by Conservative commentator Kane Blackwell and former Labour advisor Stella Santakidou. Good evening to you both. Thank you for your company. Stella, we'll start with you. Is Sir Keir Starmer going to last the distance?
Well, I don't know, Ben, because you're talking about polling and you are asking me whether the recent polling figures mean that Keir Starmer should not last his full term. And you were speaking earlier about what are the polling numbers, about how many people want the UK to rejoin the EU. So I'm wondering, if the question is, should Keir Starmer last the full term because the pollings are bad, does that mean that the UK should rejoin the EU because 56% of the public have decided that now they want to go back to the EU and they didn't want Brexit?
No, the question is, will he survive because of A, his performance thus far, which is questionable to say the least, and B, because his net approval rating is in the gutter. I think it's probably one of the worst out of any recent modern Prime Minister.
Okay, so great. So we have to decide, was it that before the elections, everything that Keir Starmer was promising and Rachel Reeves was all doom and gloom, or was it that they promised that in the first 6 months we're going to magically find all of these magic money trees and there's going to be amazing growth? Because as far as I remember, the complaint that I keep on hearing from you, Ben, and from others is that Keir Starmer was very negative before the elections. So now that they are finally in government, I do not understand why we are surprised about the fact that it's actually really hard. But to answer your questions, I've been looking through the papers throughout the weekend, and I see so many positive headlines about where this government is growing, so many amazing plans.
Like what?
Yes, because I keep on seeing...
I think we're reading the same papers.
Rachel Reeves, she fired the Competition and Markets Authority head, as you already mentioned, which I think shows...
What does that do for anybody, Stella? Sorry, how does firing the unknown boss of the CMA, most people don't even know what the Competition and Market Authority is.
Because
what does that do for anyone?
That is willing to take on the institutions which are blocking the UK's growth. That's what it shows.
All right,
shows
Kane?
he's not afraid of bureaucrats who do not want to serve the British economy.
If that's the headline achievement for this Labour government in 6 months, sacking the head of the CMA, no one knows who that is or what the CMA is. Goodness me. Kane, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, going back to the original question is, will he survive a full term? Is the sad reality, I think he will. And that's only because he has such a large majority and he has so many disposable assets, in a political sense. He can fire ministers when he needs to, replace them with desperate new MPs to climb up the greasy pole. And, a lot of the newbies were hand-selected by Starmer and his team. So, he's not going to get out of this, out of government quite anytime soon, sadly. But I think the real question is, can Britain afford Starmer for 4 more years? I don't think we can. I mean, look what's happened with the economy. The budget, since the budget, the OBR has forecast growth to be lower this time round, to have wage growth lower, to have household income growth lower, inflation higher, and interest rates higher. This is not a good look for this government, and it's not good for the British people. The Rachel Reeves is briefing out, I find it laughable, she's briefing out that she's the Iron Chancellor, the strong Iron Chancellor. She's about as strong as a tin can, Ben.
Oh, Stella, your response to that?
My response is that all I've been seeing on the papers throughout the weekend, is a chancellor who is saying she's going to tackle benefit fraud, she's going to turn Cambridge into Britain's Silicon Valley, she will not tolerate blockers either within the Labour Party or from Green Quangos or from anyone else. And she has also said that she will not be returning to austerity, which was a massive, massive mistake. All of which are things
Stella,
that pro-growth campaigners have been begging for.
Stella, can I just make a polite observation that so far, including your own comments, everything seems to be about Labour will do this, Labour are talking about that, the Chancellor will do this, Sir Keir Starmer's talking in this kind of tone. But can I just ask you, so far, 6 months in, what have Labour done that's really got you going, that's really inspired you?
Ben, do we both live on planet Earth where you can't build houses and you can't build new roads and you can't have a nuclear plant?
So you've got no you can't give an example. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm just genuinely interested to know what you think.
Biggest legislative agenda we've had in 2 decades. That's what you're getting. All of this.
I don't know what that means.
The legislative agenda that's already in motion. The main problem the UK has is that we haven't been having long-term investment. Because every government for the last 14 years has been prioritizing short-term gimmicks for headlines rather than committing to long-term projects. You know what I want to see from my government? I want to see a government that doesn't panic from the differences on polling from day to day and the hysterical headlines from the media. Okay. I want to see a government that makes adult plans and sticks to them no matter what the changing wind of the headlines and the polling says.
All right. You don't want the government to panic, but I'd argue perhaps that maybe the pensioners who can't afford their heating are panicking, the farmers are maybe panicking about the future of their farms. Kane?
Well, I completely agree. And I think going back to the point is the biggest blocker to growth in this country is Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. You're talking about a new legislative agenda, but it's just more and more regulation. When they've had 14 years to come up with a growth plan. They can't do that. They blame us 14 years. At least we took some action. At least we actually did get things done. They keep talking about it and they actually don't deliver on anything. Okay. I mean, the things that they are delivering is actually damaging the fabric of our society and of our country. And it is really, really damaging. And I think the more that this Labour government go on, the worse it will get. OK,
great debate. Thank you both. And you both think that Sir Keir Starmer will be there for the next general election. So you're agreed on that, at least.
Sadly, I mean, unless Red Ange gets a clause into him, we'll see. We don't know.
You never know. Or Wes Streeting. Wes Streeting. I've always said Wes Streeting is probably one of the more competent people in that cabinet. Stella, Kane, thank you very much for your company. Really appreciate it. Good evening to you.